Hey there, dreamers. Welcome back to our channel. Before we drift into the classic journey of Ferb Fletcher from Phineas and Ferb, I would love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see how far and wide our sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. In the heart of Danville, where summer stretches on like a dream and each day invites a new invention, there lives a boy of few words but infinite ideas. His name is Ferb Fletcher. Ferb isn't the kind of character who demands attention. He doesn't fill the room with chatter or leap to the front of the crowd. In fact, in most scenes he barely says a word. But Ferb doesn't need to speak often. His presence is felt in a quiet, reassuring way, like the hum of a well-oiled machine or the low murmur of wind through the trees on a peaceful afternoon. Still, calm, constant. From the very beginning of the series, Ferb is a mystery wrapped in a green head of hair and a pair of thoughtful eyes. Where Phineas is the spark, the enthusiast, the verbal visionary who dreams aloud, Ferb is the engine that turns dreams into reality. He listens, really listens, not just to the words around him, but to the needs behind them. And then, without fanfare, he builds, he constructs, he brings those ideas to life, quietly laying the foundation for incredible, imaginative wonders. In this peaceful space, we take a slow walk through Ferb's mind, not in the way of loud thoughts or noisy gears, but in the smooth, gentle rhythm of a soul that prefers precision over volume. Ferb's thoughts aren't cluttered or chaotic. They are neat, aligned, organized like a workshop where every tool has its place. There is no rush, only the measured flow of one brilliant idea after another, unfolding like a blueprint in the morning light. Ferb is often misunderstood by people who only measure intelligence by how much someone talks. But in truth, Ferb speaks in ways that transcend words. Every movement he makes has intention. When he picks up a wrench, it's not just to tighten a bolt. It's to complete a piece of magic. When he climbs a beam to weld the top of a roller coaster, it's not just construction. It's choreography. His silence doesn't mean he has nothing to say. It means that the world is too loud already, and his thoughts are best expressed in action. Even when he does speak on those rare, precious occasions, his words carry weight. They are thoughtful, often witty, and always intentional. It's as if Ferb stores his words carefully in a little chest inside his heart, and only opens it when something truly needs to be said. In those moments, even the most talkative characters fall quiet to listen, because when Ferb speaks, you know it matters. But perhaps what makes Ferb most unique is the serenity with which he moves through life. Nothing seems to fluster him. Whether the boys are building a time machine or turning the backyard into a beach, Ferb is composed. His expression rarely changes, just a calm, steady gaze as he works through challenges with quiet brilliance. He doesn't boast, doesn't seek applause, and never complains. In many ways, he is the still point in the whirlwind of summer. And maybe that's why people find Ferb so comforting. He's not just a genius, he's a peaceful presence. A character who reminds us that greatness doesn't have to be loud, that sometimes the most powerful minds speak in silence. He's the calm in the chaos, the eye of the storm, the one who always knows what to do, even if he doesn't explain how or why. As we drift deeper into this story, we begin to wonder what Ferb's world feels like from the inside. What does he see when he gazes off thoughtfully into the distance? What kinds of dreams dance behind his steady eyes? Is he picturing the mechanics of a new flying car? Or is he simply enjoying the symmetry of the clouds overhead? With Ferb, it could be both, science and wonder side by side. His creativity isn't just technical, it's poetic in its own way. There's a certain grace in how he fits pieces together and how his hands move with certainty, as if he's always seen the finished product before the first screw is turned. His mind, though often silent, is vivid, filled with bridges, launch pads, submarines, and musical instruments. It's a mind that doesn't see limits, only opportunities. And he doesn't build alone. Ferb thrives in collaboration, especially with his stepbrother Phineas. Their bond is seamless, like two halves of a perfect thought. Where Phineas dreams aloud, Ferb listens and builds. Where Phineas inspires, Ferb empowers. The result is not just invention, it's harmony. Their friendship is a soft reminder that understanding doesn't always require conversation. Sometimes a shared glance and a nod is enough. Even their quietest moments are filled with purpose. When they lie under a tree after a long day, watching the sky change colors as the sun sets, Ferb doesn't need to say, "That was a good day." You can feel it in the way he smiles softly, hands behind his head, content and grounded. That's Ferb's way, still deep present. Ferb's calm nature doesn't mean he lacks emotion, far from it. It means his emotions are anchored, not turbulent. He feels things deeply, but he doesn't need to broadcast it. When something makes him happy, there's a glimmer in his eyes. When he cares about someone, he shows it in small, quiet ways, a helpful gesture, a steady hand, a protective glance. His world is built on subtlety, and in those soft touches, we find a depth that words can't quite capture. And yet, despite his quiet demeanor, Ferb has a striking presence. He's the kind of person you feel safe around, even if he doesn't say anything at all. In a world of constant noise, Ferb is the silence that soothes. In a room full of shouting, he is the one you want to sit beside. There's power in his stillness, a reminder that peace is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's easy to imagine Ferb's bedroom as a perfectly organized space, shelves lined with blueprints, drawers of neatly arranged tools, maybe a telescope near the window, pointing up to the stars, not because he wants to escape the world, but because he's quietly fascinated by how everything works. From the smallest gear to the farthest planet, Ferb wants to understand, not out of ego, but out of genuine wonder. He isn't chasing attention. He's chasing understanding. And that's what makes Ferb so lovable. He never asks for the spotlight, but he always earns respect. Whether he's piloting a spaceship, rebuilding a city, or simply fixing a leaky faucet, he approaches every task with the same quiet focus. No shortcuts, no bragging, just honest, steady effort. He takes joy in the process, not just the outcome. When others panic, Ferb remains composed. When things break, he quietly begins repairs. When plans get complicated, he simplifies them without a word. He's not the loud leader or the dramatic hero. He's the one who gets things done, efficiently, elegantly, and without complaint. Sometimes we overlook characters like Ferb in stories. They don't drive the plot with big speeches or outrageous antics. But they are the glue that holds everything together. Ferb is the quiet heartbeat of every episode. The one who turns imagination into reality, not with magic, but with careful, patient craftsmanship. He is proof that behind every big dream, there's someone quietly building the ladder to reach it. It's not that Ferb is shy. He simply doesn't need to fill silence. He's comfortable in it. And that comfort makes him magnetic. Around Ferb, the world seems to slow down just a little. The noise fades, the tension loosens. It's easier to breathe, easier to think, easier to just be. In many ways, Ferb represents the ideal inner world, thoughtful, organized, creative, and calm. He isn't reactive. He reflects. He doesn't interrupt. He waits. He doesn't assume. He observes. and in doing so, he sees things others miss. He notices the tiny misalignments in a machine, the faint sound of something off balance, the small gesture that reveals how someone really feels. And because he sees so much, he knows exactly how to help. Ferb doesn't need applause. He doesn't even seem to care if anyone notices what he's done. His reward is in doing. He builds because it brings him peace. He helps because it feels right. He loves quietly, works patiently, and lives gently. There's something incredibly restful about that. He teaches us that we don't have to rush to be important, that we don't have to shout to be heard. The silence isn't emptiness. It's space. Space to think. Space to feel. Space to create. Ferb lives in that space, and in doing so, invites us in. As this segment drifts to a close, picture Ferb sitting at a workbench by the window, soft golden sunlight falling across his blue overalls. A small model of a flying car sits half-built in front of him. Outside, Phineas is calling to him with a new idea, and without hesitation, Ferb stands, wipes his hands, and joins him. Not with words, but with a spark in his eye. Because that's who Ferb is. A boy of action, of vision, of stillness. Still waters run deep, they say, and in Ferb Fletcher, they run brilliant. As evening falls over the town of Danville, there's a certain magic in the quiet moments that settle in. The sun dips below the rooftops, casting long, sleepy shadows over tree houses and backyard inventions. Streetlights hum softly as they flicker on. And somewhere inside the Fletcher household, Ferb is likely still tinkering, adjusting a wire here, sketching a design there, or simply staring out the window with a distant gaze that seems to see far beyond the horizon. Ferb is not just a builder of machines, he's a builder of calm, a bringer of balance. Around him, even the wildest projects feel manageable. When Phineas has a wild vision, Ferb is already 3 steps ahead, calculating how to make it real. When things go wrong, and sometimes they do, he doesn't panic. He simply assesses, adapts, and fixes, with a wrench in one hand and serenity in the other. There's a quiet poetry in that, in how he exists not just as a character, but as a feeling. Watching Ferb feels like exhaling after a long breath, like curling into a warm blanket while the rain taps gently on the window, like the moment between thoughts when the world stands still and nothing is expected of you. Even his humor is subtle and soft. Ferb's comedic timing is nearly flawless, despite his sparse dialogue. When he does speak, it's often with dry wit and precise timing, a sentence so unexpected that it lands with perfect charm. But even when silent, he's funny in the way he reacts, with a simple raise of the eyebrow or a glance that says more than any punchline. It's a quiet, observational humor that never tries too hard, just like him. As summer days pass in a haze of creativity and mischief, Ferb remains a constant. Through time travel, space adventures, underwater cities, and battles of the bands, his energy never shifts. He is the lighthouse in the fog of Phineas's imagination, a steady beam that helps ideas find form. He's not the one steering the ship, but he's certainly the one making sure it sails. And though he often stays in the background, that doesn't mean he doesn't lead. In fact, Ferb leads by example. With every calm decision, every thoughtful solution, and every quiet moment of brilliance, he inspires those around him. Candace, Baljeet, Isabella, they all trust him, not just because he's capable, but because he's reliable, dependable, unshakably kind. There's also something deeply touching about the way Ferb connects with others, not through long conversations or speeches, but through meaningful presence. With Perry, the platypus, for instance, Ferb is always gentle and respectful, never treating him like just a pet. With Vanessa Doofenshmirtz, Ferb's affection is quiet and dignified, free from obsession or drama. Even his relationship with Lawrence, his father, is built on shared appreciation and mutual understanding. Ferb doesn't ask for attention. He earns admiration quietly. And in doing so, he shows us a kind of strength that often goes unnoticed in a world full of noise, the strength to be still, to be patient, to be present. In a society that often celebrates speed and spectacle, Ferb reminds us that there is just as much power in stillness, that a well-timed silence can say more than 1,000 words, that being observant, careful, and consistent is a form of leadership in its own right. Imagine what the world might feel like if more people moved through it the way Ferb does, less rushing, more listening, less noise, more thought, less need to impress, more desire to create, not because someone's watching, but because it simply feels right. As the stars begin to appear in the purple sky above Danville, we picture Ferb one last time in this quiet chapter, sitting on the rooftop with Phineas, looking out over a peaceful town. The night breeze rustles their hair. Phineas chatters on about the next day's project, excitedly pointing out constellations and half-formed ideas. Ferb doesn't respond with words. He doesn't need to. Instead, he looks at his brother with a small, warm smile, then gazes back at the sky, his mind already mapping out how to make that next dream a reality. Somewhere in his back pocket, he's sketched out blueprints for a starlift, or a comet chaser, or a dream catcher made of silver wires and soft lights, his brain always working, his soul always calm. And as we drift off into the story, nestled in the soft quiet of Ferb's world, we begin to understand something essential. Silence isn't empty, it's full of possibility. Stillness isn't boring, it's deep. And Ferb Fletcher? He's not just the quiet one. He's the center of the calm. When you think of great duos, some names come easily to mind. But nestled among those legendary pairings, there exists one of the most quietly powerful creative partnerships in all of animation, Ferb and Phineas. Two stepbrothers joined not by blood, but by something deeper, imagination, purpose, and an unshakable belief in what they can build together. It's early morning in Danville again, and the sun spills in through the windows of a modest suburban home. While the neighborhood still slumbers, two minds awaken with a sense of purpose. Not because they have to. There's no school today. No chores left unfinished. It's summer. And for Phineas and Ferb, summer is a blank canvas. Phineas, the ever-optimistic redhead, is the spark, an idea machine overflowing with energy. His voice carries through the house like a jolt of electricity. "Hey, Ferb, I know what we're going to do today," he says nearly every episode, his eyes already alight with plans. But behind that statement, behind that creative rush, is always Ferb. The hands, the focus, the quiet genius ready to turn possibility into presence. Their bond is more than just teamwork. It's symbiosis. Phineas dreams it. Ferb engineers it. There is no ego in their collaboration. Phineas doesn't need to micromanage because he trusts Ferb implicitly, and Ferb doesn't hesitate because he understands Phineas's vision as clearly as if it were his own. This unspoken rhythm is the backbone of their entire summer. It's the kind of partnership that moves without friction. No arguments, no credit wars, no shouting matches, just flow. Creative, constructive flow. Think of all they've done. Roller coasters stretching into the clouds, time machines powered by curiosity, musical numbers written in a single afternoon, and entire civilizations built before lunchtime. These aren't just wild ideas, they're feats of cooperation. And every single one is a showcase of how two very different personalities can align in a perfect harmony. Phineas is outwardly expressive. He talks through problems, thinks aloud, and spreads enthusiasm like sunlight. His joy is contagious. He's the kind of person who gets everyone involved, who sees the best in others, who believes that boredom is the enemy of childhood. He gives the ideas their wings. And Ferb gives them weight. He's the anchor, the one who measures, who cuts, who drills, who welds. While Phineas imagines how tall a skyscraper could be, Ferb's already calculating the stress points and testing out the hydraulic system. He doesn't need to announce what he's doing. He simply does it. But what's most remarkable isn't just their results, it's how in sync they are. There's no need for long explanations. A single glance is often enough. When Phineas lays out a wild plan, Ferb is already nodding, already walking toward the garage to grab his toolkit. Their connection is wordless, seamless, and filled with mutual respect. This kind of unity isn't born overnight. It comes from trust, from knowing that the other person will always show up, that they'll catch your idea before it falls, or offer one of their own if yours runs out of steam. It's the quiet comfort of building something side by side, and never needing to question whether you're on the same page. And it's not just about the inventions. They build memories. Day after day, they leave behind trails of joy across their backyard, their neighborhood, and sometimes entire dimensions. But more than anything, they leave behind a sense of shared accomplishment, a feeling that together they can do anything, because they've done it, over and over again. What's beautiful is that their dynamic doesn't rely on competition. Phineas never tries to outshine Ferb, and Ferb never tries to steal the spotlight. They lift each other up, always. There's no need for validation when your work speaks for itself, and when your partner always has your back. And while Ferb may not speak often, his silence is never mistaken for absence. Phineas never forgets to include him. He never speaks over him or ignores his presence. Instead, he invites Ferb in, knowing full well that without him, nothing would be possible. That's love in action. Pure, thoughtful inclusion. Together, they create more than inventions. They create an environment. One where everyone who enters, their friends, their family, even passers-by, feels like they're part of something extraordinary. Because in the world of Phineas and Ferb, creativity is for sharing, not hoarding. Even their failures, when they happen, are met with grace. A machine collapses, they rebuild it. A rocket misfires, they try again tomorrow. There's no blame, no finger-pointing, just learning, growing, improving. Together. They've figured something out that many people spend a lifetime trying to learn. That the most powerful kind of success isn't individual, it's shared. And the most enduring kind of partnership is one that's built on mutual belief, gentle encouragement, and unshakable trust. In many ways, their creations are less about showing off and more about capturing a feeling, a moment of joy, a flash of inspiration, or a shared curiosity about how things work. Phineas and Ferb aren't just building things for the sake of being impressive. They're building because they love the process. They love waking up each morning with a question on their minds. What if we could? And while Phineas voices those questions aloud, it's Ferb who listens, who absorbs the ideas like sunlight through leaves. He doesn't question the logic, doesn't resist the impossible. He just begins. Ferb has always had a remarkable ability to trust the dream, no matter how absurd or ambitious it sounds. Whether it's building a roller coaster that breaks the laws of physics or recreating Mount Rushmore out of gelatin, Ferb simply trusts in the act of creation. What binds them isn't just a love for invention, but a shared philosophy. That wonder is worth chasing, and that play is serious business. Not the kind of seriousness that brings stress or deadlines, but the kind that brings focus, respect, care. They approach each idea with the attention of artists, the patience of engineers, and the hearts of children who still believe anything is possible. And yet, they never forget the joy. Watch them at work and you'll see it, not chaos or tension, but a kind of synchronized dance. Phineas sketches something on a napkin, and Ferb already knows what tools they'll need. They don't need blueprints to communicate. Their blueprint is trust. It's not hard to imagine the two of them sitting cross-legged in their backyard workshop surrounded by scattered parts and half-finished ideas. The afternoon light slants across the floorboards. Phineas is talking animatedly about the potential aerodynamics of a jet-powered bicycle. Ferb, quietly soldering a piece of tubing, gives a nod that says, "Let's do it." They rarely argue. Not because they always agree, but because they always listen. When one of them hits a wall, the other finds a door. When one loses direction, the other gently guides them back. It's not just invention, it's navigation. A joint journey through a shared landscape of ideas. And then, there's the artistry of how they share their world. Their inventions aren't locked away in secret labs. They're meant to be seen, enjoyed, lived in. They invite friends, siblings, even strangers to experience what they've made. Ferris wheels that reach the moon, concerts held on top of moving trucks, backyards transformed into theme parks. It's not just about what they build, but about who they build it for. Everyone is welcome in the worlds Phineas and Ferb create. Even when the invention disappears by the end of the episode, usually thanks to a well-timed parry and Doofenshmirtz subplot, it doesn't matter. The memory of it lingers, and that's what matters most to them. Not permanence, but presence. Not trophies, but the feeling of having created something together. And when the project ends, there's no sadness, just stillness. A quiet satisfaction. Phineas might plop down in the grass, arms behind his head, eyes on the clouds. Ferb will settle beside him, wiping a trace of grease from his sleeve. No words needed. Just a shared glance and knowing smile. Another day well spent. What they share goes beyond creativity. It's the kind of brotherhood that doesn't need constant affirmation to stay strong. It's the kind that holds steady even in silence, even in stillness. The kind of bond that doesn't get louder when things are exciting or quieter when things are tough. It simply stays. Sometimes, when Phineas is caught up in the moment, chatting with Isabella, answering Candace's suspicions, or presenting their creation with flair, you'll notice Ferb in the background. Always attentive, always there. He's not hiding, he's supporting, he's anchoring. And when Phineas glances his way, Ferb is always ready, always steady. That glance says it all. We've got this. It's not a leader-follower relationship. It's not inventor-assistant. It's a perfect equilibrium. Like two gears turning in sync, neither could work without the other. The speed of one matches the precision of the other. Together they are unstoppable, and yet completely at peace. There's a quiet kind of brilliance in how Ferb never seems to seek recognition, even when his contributions are central to their every success. He doesn't build for applause. He builds because it brings him joy. Because bringing ideas to life is his way of communicating with the world. And perhaps, more importantly, it's his way of communicating with Phineas. Their bond is a gentle language made of eye contact, gestures, timing, and trust. A silent handshake that says, "You dream it, I'll build it," and vice versa. Because while Ferb may not speak much, he listens deeply. He tunes into Phineas's excitement, processes his ideas, and then answers in the form of gears turning, circuits coming to life, and impossibly smooth execution. And Phineas? He never forgets what Ferb brings to the table. He may be the one standing in front of the crowd, explaining the invention, but he never acts as if he did it alone. In fact, his excitement grows even more when he gets to say, "Ferb, I know what we're going to do today," because the idea only becomes real when Ferb is by his side. They make each other better, not by changing who they are, but by leaning fully into who they already are. Ferb helps ground Phineas's soaring ideas, giving them structure and sustainability. And Phineas helps draw Ferb out of his quiet world, giving him a stage to shine on, even if Ferb chooses to stand off to the side. The beauty is that they don't push each other. They lift each other. You'll never see them compete, never see them try to one-up each other. It's always shoulder to shoulder, never nose to nose. And that's what makes them so endlessly watchable. Not because they're larger than life, but because their connection feels so grounded, so kind. It's a friendship forged not in drama, but in shared vision. That kind of cooperation is rare, not just in fiction, but in life. It takes humility to build with someone else, to step aside and let someone else shine, to allow your idea to evolve because of someone else's hands. But for Phineas and Ferb, that's second nature. There's no control, no pride, no need for credit. Just a pure, joyful curiosity and the confidence to know that whatever they're building together. And when others join in, Isabella, Baljeet, Buford, the same principles apply. Everyone has a role. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is encouraged to contribute. The culture of collaboration doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from the foundation Phineas and Ferb built, one of respect, equality, and warmth. Even Perry the platypus, their silent observer and part-time secret agent, feels this balance. While he's busy living a double life, he never interferes with the boys. And in a way, that's telling. Because even though their inventions often defy logic, there's something so wholesome and harmless about their intentions that the universe itself seems to make room for them. Ferb, especially, embodies that sense of groundedness. He brings balance to the wild and wonderful ideas that pass through their backyard like wind. Without him, Phineas might float too high, chase too many ideas at once. But with Ferb, everything has a rhythm, a flow, a purpose. Think of the sheer variety of what they've created. A portal to Mars, a giant self-playing musical instrument, a museum of cool, a robot dog, a circus on stilts, a pancake-making machine that flips itself. And no matter how bizarre or complex the build, Ferb is always ready with the perfect part, the flawless weld, the essential calibration. His quiet confidence is the invisible scaffolding that holds their world together. There's a scene in many episodes, familiar and comforting, where Phineas proudly presents their day's invention to the group. The music swells, the crowd gathers, and behind it all, Ferb stands tall, slightly behind his brother, hands calmly resting on the control panel or toolbox. His expression doesn't scream for recognition. It simply says, "We did it." And that's enough. Every great invention the brothers make eventually fades, either dismantled, removed by some quirky twist of fate, or conveniently cleaned up before their mom gets home. But that impermanence never bothers them. They're not building for history. They're building for the moment, for the joy of collaboration, the thrill of seeing something impossible become real, and the satisfaction of doing it with someone you trust. Ferb doesn't cling to what they've made. He doesn't mourn what's lost. His eyes are always calm, always ready for what's next. He lives in the present, not out of distraction, but out of deep intention. He builds it. He enjoys it. And when it's gone, he smiles softly and waits for the next idea to arrive. The real magic isn't in the roller coasters or the rocket ships. It's in the ritual. That quiet morning rhythm. The spark of an idea, the hum of construction. The shared triumph of something made with care. It's in the way Phineas and Ferb look at each other when a new dream takes shape. The moment of knowing, that silent understanding, yes, we can do this. And it's not hard to imagine them as adults one day, not necessarily world-famous inventors, not the richest men in town, but still waking up each day with something to build. Not because they have to, but because it's who they are. They are creators, not just of machines, but of joy, of memory, of meaning. Ferb may not say much, but his actions speak volumes. And one of the loudest messages he sends, without ever needing words, is this: I believe in us. He shows it every time he picks up a tool without hesitation. Every time he answers a wild idea with a calm nod. Every time he quietly finishes the work while the rest of the world celebrates. His belief in Phineas is unwavering. And Phineas, in turn, knows that no matter how wild the idea, Ferb will always be there to help bring it to life. That kind of faith isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's steady, gentle, constant. And perhaps that's what makes their relationship so compelling. Not just as brothers, but as partners in creation. They aren't trying to save the world or solve its deepest problems. They're just trying to enjoy it, to play in it, to shape it in their own way, one summer day at a time. Their friendship teaches us something quietly profound, that building something beautiful doesn't require perfection. It requires partnership, trust, patience, and a willingness to listen, even when no words are spoken. When you think back to their adventures, not just the spectacular ones, but the quiet ones too, you begin to see how Ferb's presence gently shapes the tone of their days. He brings calm to chaos, focus to fantasy, and grace to every screw turned and beam raised. And when the day winds down, when the invention is complete, the fun has been had, and the sun begins to dip behind the trees, you'll often see Phineas and Ferb sitting quietly side by side. No music, no speeches, just the golden hush of early evening and the sound of cicadas humming in the distance. Phineas might be talking about what they'll build tomorrow, and Ferb, ever patient, ever thoughtful, will just smile. Maybe he says one sentence, maybe he says nothing at all, but you feel the message. We did something good today, and tomorrow we'll do it again. It's not about changing the world. It's about changing the moment. And with each moment they share, each project they build, Phineas and Ferb remind us that some of the most meaningful connections in life don't need to be spoken. They're built piece by piece, with quiet hands and open hearts. In the end, they are more than inventors. They are more than stepbrothers. They are two dreamers creating joy together. If you were to step inside Ferb Fletcher's mind, you wouldn't find chaos, clutter, or noise. You wouldn't hear the buzz of rushing thoughts or the sharp crackle of scattered ideas. No, Ferb's inner world is something else entirely. It's quiet there, purposeful, like a workshop at dusk, tools resting neatly in their places, a soft golden light pouring in through the high windows, dust particles floating lazily in the air. There is motion, but it's smooth, calculated, serene. His thoughts glide like blueprints unrolling across a clean table. Precise lines, gentle curves, careful measurements, laid out not with stress, but with joy. Ferb doesn't just solve problems. He sees through them, understands them on a level that defies words. And the way he approaches building, designing, crafting, it's not just intelligence, it's artistry. The kind of artistry that doesn't need applause to be fulfilling. Where others might see a pile of parts, Ferb sees potential. A few wires, the start of a sound system, some old wheels, and the frame of a moon rover. Scraps of metal, tubing, and discarded gadgets become puzzle pieces in a vision only he can fully grasp. And it's not a forced vision. It arrives naturally, as if the parts themselves are whispering where they want to go. He simply listens. Ferb's creativity isn't wild or chaotic. It doesn't come in loud bursts or dramatic eureka moments. Instead, it flows like a river, slow, steady, always moving. His dreams aren't fantastical escapes. They're structured wonders, imagined realities with blueprints already forming in the background. Even while lying in the grass on a summer afternoon, his mind is quietly assembling shapes, tracing possibilities in the sky. Sometimes he'll pause in the middle of a build, not because he's stuck, but because he's refining, imagining how it could feel, not just how it could function. He's not content with things just working. They must work beautifully. Smooth mechanisms, invisible seams, balance in every corner. It's the difference between a machine and a masterpiece. Ferb is an engineer by nature, but a poet at heart. And though he rarely uses his voice, his inventions speak for him. A treehouse that folds out into a flying fortress. A submarine shaped like a dragon. A music-powered hoverboard. These aren't just devices, they're expressions. Quiet declarations of wonder, precision, and childlike joy. And they begin always in the same place. The quiet of Ferb's thoughts. If we could see the inside of his imagination, it might resemble a dreamlike laboratory, walls made of glass, gears turning without friction, holographic plans suspended midair, gently rotating in silence. Ideas would hover in the corners like fireflies, glowing gently, never shouting for attention. Everything would hum, but never buzz. Ferb's mind isn't noisy. It's peaceful. A place where everything has a place. It's easy to mistake Ferb's silence for distance. But it's not disconnection. It's deep connection, directed inward. While others speak their dreams, Ferb engineers his. While others reach for the stars, Ferb is quietly building the ship to take them there. He doesn't talk about his ideas unless someone asks. And even then, he often lets his work answer the question. But that doesn't mean he isn't dreaming. It just means his dreams take form, not in sentences, but in structure. Take, for example, the first time Phineas said, "Let's build a backyard roller coaster." While most people would laugh or doubt, Ferb simply nodded. He could already see it. The rails, the supports, the perfect launch curve. In his mind, the ride was already built, even before a single nail was hammered. That's how he works, fast but never rushed, thoughtful but never hesitant. Every project starts as a quiet idea drifting across his calm internal sky. And because he isn't trying to impress anyone, Ferb allows his creativity to unfold naturally. There's no fear of failure in his work, no panic, just curiosity and focus. If a piece doesn't fit, he shifts it. If something malfunctions, he studies it. Nothing is wasted, and no moment is rushed. To Ferb, engineering isn't just about building something useful. It's about building something meaningful, a contraption that brings joy, a mechanism that solves a quiet problem, or a design so elegant it disappears into the experience. His work is both visible and invisible. You see what he builds, but you don't always realize how carefully it was done. And that's just how he likes it. Though Ferb doesn't speak often, every invention he creates is a conversation with the world. A quiet one, yes, but full of expression, full of thought. If you look closely at the things Ferb builds, you begin to notice a pattern. Each machine, structure, or device carries an emotional fingerprint, a subtle clue about how he sees life. A self-playing harp that echoes across a valley, a hover scooter that glides smoother than any skateboard, a fully automated picnic that sets itself up with cloth napkins and cucumber sandwiches. They're not just technical achievements, they're gifts, thoughtful answers to unspoken questions. And in that way, Ferb becomes a kind of silent caregiver, someone who shows affection through design. He builds things that make people feel understood, seen, and surprised in the gentlest way. Even when the project is massive, like an interdimensional portal or a robot army, it always carries that personal touch, a softness in the lines, a grace in the execution. His machines never overpower, they invite. This might be why people naturally gravitate toward him, even when he says nothing. His presence is calming, but his creations are quietly astonishing. Buford, Baljeet, Isabella. They all trust Ferb, not just because he's capable, but because he's consistent, general. A steady hand in a spinning world. It's not that Ferb avoids emotion. It's that his emotion is poured into every bolt he turns, every structure he strengthens. And that quiet focus is deeply comforting. Watching him work is like watching waves roll in, rhythmic, graceful, endlessly reliable. In his own way, Ferb has crafted a philosophy of engineering, not one written in textbooks or published in papers, but one that lives in his actions, even in the moments when a project goes awry, when a rocket wobbles or track splits. Ferb is never rattled. He doesn't panic. He simply observes, recalibrates, and corrects. There's no blame, no frustration, just understanding, a gentle willingness to learn and adjust. That's the kind of mindset that turns mistakes into new beginnings. And in his silence, Ferb teaches others to slow down, too, to observe more closely, to think before acting. Around him, the frantic pace of the day softens, as if his calm is contagious. Even Candace, who is so often on the edge of exasperation, sometimes seems to pause around Ferb, caught in his gentle gravitational field. If Phineas is the fire that sparks the idea, Ferb is the water that shapes it. Cool, fluid, powerful in its quiet persistence. And just as water can wear down stone, Ferb's quiet diligence leaves a lasting impact on every invention and on every person who works beside him. Sometimes, while everyone else is caught up in excitement, Ferb will step aside just for a moment, to watch the thing they've made come to life. His eyes narrow slightly, his expression unreadable, but inside you can tell there's something special happening. That flicker of awe, that subtle pride. He doesn't need to shout it out loud. He simply feels it, fully, completely. And then with a small nod, he returns to his work. Ferb's daydreams aren't just fantasies, they're blueprints for joy. He doesn't imagine a perfect world. He imagines a better one. One where boredom doesn't stand a chance. Where play and invention go hand in hand. Where friends come together to build something lasting, not just in the physical world, but in the heart. What makes him remarkable is that, in dreaming, Ferb never forgets the details. His imagination is expansive, yes, but it's also grounded, anchored in logic. His wildest dreams still follow the rules of good engineering. His sky castles have firm foundations. His flying bicycles obey the laws of balance. He dreams like an artist, but builds like a craftsman. And so, while others might daydream about castles in the air, Ferb sketches the floor plan, measures the weight distribution, considers the wind resistance, and then, almost effortlessly, he begins to build. There's something profoundly relaxing about watching Ferb in action. His movements are fluid, never frantic. He doesn't rush, even when the deadline is before Mom gets home. His hands move with quiet certainty, guided by muscle memory and clear intention. In his world, every motion has meaning. Every tool returns to its place. Every step follows a rhythm. It's almost like Ferb lives inside a slow-motion montage that no one else can see. There's a stillness in him that doesn't resist movement. It guides it. While others might start building in a burst of inspiration, Ferb begins with a pause, a moment to plan, to picture the outcome, and only then does he begin, quietly, efficiently, beautifully. The clatter of hammers, the whirring of drills, the hiss of welding, all blend into a sort of meditative hum when Ferb is at work. You could sit beside him for hours and barely notice the time passing. He wouldn't demand conversation or attention. He wouldn't need music or noise to keep him going, just the satisfaction of turning thought into form. Just the quiet joy of knowing that something wonderful is taking shape beneath his hands. There's almost a spiritual quality to it. Ferb isn't obsessed with perfection. He doesn't get flustered when a plan needs revising. His mind adjusts as naturally as a river curves around a bend. If something breaks, he fixes it. If a better idea comes along, he incorporates it. His pride isn't fragile, because his focus isn't on being right. It's on getting it right. And while many people approach engineering as a challenge or a competition, Ferb approaches it with reverence. He treats materials with care. He respects the tools. He trusts the process. And in doing so, he brings a kind of softness to science, a gentle reminder that logic and creativity aren't opposites. They're dance partners. This is why Ferb never needs to show off. His work speaks for itself. A machine that folds laundry with perfect precision. A solar-powered ice cream truck. A boat that sails on music. Each invention feels like something he dreamed up not to impress, but to delight. Not just functional, but thoughtful. And often, those little touches are things only Ferb would think to include. A handle shaped just right for Buford's large hands. A ramp for Perry to land his hoverboard. A temperature control system, so Isabella's fireside marshmallows are always roasted to perfection. Tiny, almost invisible design decisions that show just how deeply Ferb observes the people around him. He's not just building for fun. He's building for others, quietly studying what brings them comfort, what sparks their joy, and then finding a way to make that happen. That kind of attentiveness takes a special kind of mind, a mind that listens without interrupting, that notices without judging, that dreams not of fame but of usefulness. And in Ferb's case, usefulness always comes with elegance. Even at rest, Ferb is designing. While others laugh, joke, or plan, Ferb often stays slightly in the background, still calm, thoughtful. But he's not zoning out. He's daydreaming with intention, letting ideas float through his mind like paper boats on a stream, watching how they drift, how they turn, which ones are worth chasing. And when the right one lands in his hands, he builds. It's beautiful, really. The way his mind never forces creativity. He doesn't brainstorm loudly or scribble wildly. His ideas arrive like stars blinking into view, quiet, soft, inevitable. And when he acts on them, it's never rushed, just one careful motion at a time, like a lullaby made of gears and graphite. Sometimes it feels like Ferb understands time differently than the rest of us. He never seems in a hurry, never worried about wasting minutes or running out of hours. He trusts that the time he spends thinking, planning, and observing is not lost, but invested. And the result? A smoother ride, a cleaner finish, a design that doesn't just work, it feels right. He doesn't speak it aloud, but Ferb knows speed isn't always the answer. Sometimes the best things take time. As the sun begins to set in Danville, Ferb often finds himself in the final moments of another project. Not hurried, not desperate to finish, but calmly guiding the last few steps. He checks a connection, tightens a bolt, runs a test. Everything is done with care. He knows when something is ready, not because a clock says so, but because he can feel it. Then quietly he steps back. He doesn't strike a pose. He doesn't shout, "Look what I built." He simply observes, watching the machine come alive, the gears turning, the lights blinking on, the movement unfolding just as he pictured it hours ago in his mind. Phineas might take the lead in explaining the invention to the others. The crowd might cheer, the friends might marvel. But Ferb, he just watches, his hands behind his back, a gentle smile at the corners of his mouth. Not proud in a boastful way, but peaceful, content. The kind of contentment that comes from creating something good. And often, when the others are celebrating or playing with what's been built, Ferb will walk a few steps away, not to leave, just to reflect. Maybe he picks up a stray tool or runs his hand along a smooth edge of metal. Maybe he looks at the sky and imagines the next possibility. Even in the afterglow of success, his mind is already drifting gently forward, like a paper boat floating toward the next horizon. Ferb doesn't need to build things to be happy. But building is how he shares his happiness. Some kids write songs, some paint, some tell stories. Ferb's gift is motion, precision, balance. Through each nut and bolt, he tells you something about how he sees the world, orderly but open, imaginative but grounded, playful but respectful. Every invention is a love letter to possibility. And the best part? Ferb doesn't dream of owning or keeping these creations. He dreams of sharing them, letting others experience joy, surprise, and wonder. His machines are meant to be touched, ridden, climbed, explored. He doesn't tape off his work with "do not touch" signs. He opens the door and says, silently, "Go ahead, see what it can do." He doesn't seek control, he offers freedom. And that, in itself, is a rare kind of dream. In a world that often rewards loudness, Ferb is a quiet force. He doesn't need attention to feel fulfilled. His dreams don't shout, they whisper, they hum. They glide into being like a soft breeze that cools the afternoon heat. And yet somehow they leave a deep impression. Long after the invention is gone, you remember how it felt to be inside it, to be part of it, to be welcomed by it. And isn't that the best kind of engineering? Not just something that works, but something that touches people, something that makes the world feel lighter, smoother, more playful, even just for a moment. Ferb may not wear his heart on his sleeve, but he leaves it in everything he builds. His daydreams are never selfish. They're never flashy. They're thoughtful, inclusive, and full of wonder. Whether he's creating a time-traveling car or a lemonade-dispensing helmet, you can feel the same gentle intention behind each design, to make someone smile, to make the world feel a little more magical. And when the day comes to an end, when the machine has done its job, the laughter has faded, and the stars begin to twinkle overhead, you can often find Ferb lying on the grass, eyes open, silent, thinking, not exhausted, not distracted, just still. He's already imagining tomorrow. Not because he needs to top himself, not because anyone expects it, but because he wants to, because in the soft, mechanical rhythm of creation, Ferb finds something sacred, something peaceful, something that feels like home. So he closes his eyes. The world grows quiet. And inside the soft hum of his mind, another gentle idea begins to take shape. Ferb Fletcher is a boy of few words, many ideas, and even more mysteries. While most people see the inventor, the silent engineer, or the genius behind countless summer creations, there's a softer truth hiding just beneath that quiet surface. One that doesn't always get noticed. Not because it's missing, but because it's subtle, it's steady, and it's sincere. Ferb is a romantic. Not the loud kind with declarations and dramatic gestures. Not the kind who reads poetry under moonlight or writes long love letters with flowery metaphors. His version of romance is quieter but deeper. It's there in the way he looks, the way he listens, and the way he acts when no one else is watching. You begin to notice it in how he treats Vanessa Doofenshmirtz. From the outside, she's everything Ferb isn't. Cool, aloof, sometimes skeptical of the wild things around her. She walks with purpose and wears a smirk like armor. But Ferb? He doesn't try to break that armor. He respects it. He doesn't chase her down with flattery or try to impress her with loud ideas. Instead, he simply shows up. He helps. He listens. He pays attention. And somehow, that says more than 1,000 compliments ever could. When Ferb looks at Vanessa, there's no awkwardness or hesitation. He doesn't stammer or overthink. He just watches, calmly, gently, like he's seeing a beautiful painting and doesn't want to disturb the moment by speaking over it. And when he acts, when he builds a device to help her, or offers support without being asked, it's never to win her over. It's because he cares. Because helping is his love language. Fixing things, improving things, building bridges where walls once stood. That's how Ferb expresses what he feels. But this quiet romanticism isn't limited to Vanessa. Ferb sees beauty in many things, small things. The glint of sunlight on freshly poured concrete, the symmetry of a perfect weld, the way grass bends under a soft breeze. He notices these details and holds them like treasures. He doesn't point them out or write them down. He just lets them live quietly in his mind, tucked away like keepsakes. This appreciation for beauty, for balance, for connection, it's part of what makes him so romantic. He doesn't fall in love loudly. He doesn't need fireworks. He finds his feelings in small sparks, in watching someone laugh when they think no one's looking, in offering a tool at the exact right moment, in standing beside someone, wordless, because sometimes presence is more powerful than poetry. He is, in every sense, an observer of emotion. Not a spectator, but a student. He learns by watching, understands by doing, and feels by building. And though he rarely talks about his feelings, they show in the precision of his actions. If he builds a hoverboard for someone, it won't just function. It'll match their favorite color. If he programs a robot, it won't just complete tasks. It'll respond to their tone, anticipate needs, offer comfort. These touches may seem invisible to the untrained eye, but they're the invisible threads that tie Ferb's emotions to the world around him. And perhaps most touching of all is that Ferb doesn't expect anything in return. His romantic gestures aren't trade-offers. They're gifts. Quiet, unwrapped, often unnoticed, but gifts all the same. His heart is not transactional. It simply wants to build something beautiful and share it with the people he cares about. He might never say the words, "I love you," aloud. But in the soft way he hands someone their favorite snack, or in the way he keeps an umbrella ready when it looks like rain, you'll find those 3 words written into every quiet gesture. There's a moment that stands out, a small scene easily missed. Vanessa is standing alone, frustrated after one of her father's odd inventions backfires. She sighs, brushes her hair out of her eyes, and mutters something about how nothing ever works right. She doesn't ask for help. She doesn't look around. But Ferb sees her. And without a word, he walks over, kneels beside the malfunctioning contraption, and begins to quietly repair it. He doesn't make a show of it. He doesn't try to start a conversation. He simply understands. Not just the mechanics of the machine, but the moment. That's the heart of Ferb's romantic nature. His intuition. His ability to read between words, to sense what someone needs even before they do. Vanessa doesn't say thank you. Not at first. She just watches him for a while. And in that silence, something passes between them, unspoken, but deeply understood. It's not love, exactly. Not yet. But it's the beginning of something honest. Something earned, not forced. Ferb's romantic gestures are often like that. Simple, wordless offerings of kindness that never demand attention. A steady hand on a shoulder. A small smile at the perfect moment. A gadget left on someone's doorstep that solves a tiny inconvenience they never even mentioned aloud. These moments are soft, almost invisible, but they linger. It's not about grand drama or sweeping music for Ferb. He's not interested in hearts and roses, in candlelit confessions or stage surprises. His affection comes through in the details. The extra coat of paint on a project. The quiet note tucked into a blueprint. The time he takes to make something just right for someone else, even if they'll never notice the effort behind it. Because for Ferb, love is in the doing. Even his closest relationships outside of romance, his bond with Phineas, his respect for Perry, his unspoken understanding with Isabella, are built on this foundation of quiet action. He doesn't need to tell you he cares. He just shows up. He helps. He remembers. He builds. And sometimes, when no one else is around, Ferb lets his guard down just a little. He sits at his workbench late at night, his tools neatly arranged, the soft light of a desk lamp casting a golden glow across his blueprints. He's not working on a mission, not solving a big problem. Just designing something small, personal, thoughtful, a gift maybe, a memento, a device no one asked for but someone might need. That's where you see the real romantic heart of Ferb when he's creating just for the joy of giving. Not because it's expected, not because it will be praised, but because someone out there deserves something beautiful, and Ferb has the power to make it real. He understands that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's found in consistency. In remembering someone's favorite song and building a speaker that plays it only when they walk in. In choosing the quieter path, holding back a comment, allowing someone else's voice to shine, letting another person feel seen without ever demanding the spotlight. Vanessa, for all her complexity, senses that about him. Over time, she begins to respond in small ways, a glance held just a moment longer, a sarcastic comment softened at the edges, a rare compliment, casually delivered, but genuine underneath. She may not say it outright, but she starts to trust Ferb, not just because he's reliable, but because he cares without expectation, because he never pressures her to feel something she's not ready for, because he waits, not for the perfect moment to confess his feelings, but for the right moment to offer kindness. And sometimes, that kindness is all someone really needs. In the world of Ferb Fletcher, love doesn't interrupt. It flows, gently, naturally, like water finding its way through stone, not with force, but with patience. And perhaps that's what makes him so different from other boys his age. He isn't trying to win anyone over. He isn't performing. He's just being, consistently, authentically, quietly. It's why people feel safe with him. Because with Ferb, there's no guessing, no games. His silence isn't mystery for mystery's sake. It's calm, it's focus. And when it surrounds someone like Vanessa, someone who's used to chaos, sarcasm, and high expectations, it creates space for her to just exist. No pretense, no pressure, just peace. There's romance in that kind of presence. There's romance in how Ferb remembers the little things, how he pays attention to what others forget. He's the type to fix someone's broken sunglasses overnight without mentioning it. The type to hand someone a warm drink on a chilly morning without asking if they were cold. The type to design a noise-canceling bracelet just so someone can enjoy a moment of quiet in a noisy room. He doesn't ask for credit. He doesn't wait for praise. He simply smiles, maybe tilts his head, and returns to his work. And when it comes to love, that's how he offers himself, not in declarations, but in dedication. To Ferb, love is steady. It's shared eye contact from across a room. It's helping someone carry a heavy box without being asked. It's remembering which side of the rocket ship someone prefers to sit on, or adjusting a safety harness so it fits just right. When he builds for someone, it's never just a project, it's a message. A message that says, I saw you, I understood what you needed, and I built something for you just because I could. That's the kind of romance that lasts. And slowly, those around him begin to realize it. Vanessa, who once might have rolled her eyes at a heartfelt gesture, now pauses when Ferb hands her something. A tool, a device, a small, thoughtful invention. Her sarcastic edge doesn't disappear, but it softens. Not because Ferb tries to change her, but because he never tries to change her. He accepts her just as she is, and in doing so gives her space to change on her own. Sometimes they don't say a word to each other for entire scenes, just a look, a glance, a soft smile passed between two people who understand more than they let on. There's something strangely profound in those silences, something warm and genuine and whole. It's not about rushing into a relationship. It's about allowing one to breathe. And that's what Ferb does. He gives his feelings space to grow. He doesn't rush. He doesn't panic. He doesn't worry about what others might think. He lets the connection take its time, the same way he lets his inventions evolve. He knows that some things, the best things, aren't built in a single day. Because love, in Ferb's eyes, isn't a race. It's a rhythm. A slow, meaningful alignment of two people who don't need to say everything aloud, because the important things are felt, shared, expressed in the smallest of moments, a nod, a glance, a quiet thank you said with eyes, not words. And that rhythm continues, day after day, project after project. Ferb never demands attention. He simply offers it. He notices when someone's mood shifts, when someone's tired, when someone wants to talk but doesn't quite know how. And in those moments, he's just there. That kind of presence isn't dramatic, but it's unforgettable. Ferb's romantic side is built from soft stones, tiny everyday moments that build into something strong, something lasting. Not a sudden fireworks show, but a warm, steady glow, and if you look closely, you'll see it in everything he does. He may never sing a love song or write a sweeping monologue, but Ferb's way of loving is no less beautiful. Some people fall in love with grand gestures, the roses, the serenades, the words written across the sky. But Ferb Fletcher, he falls in love with moments, with the way someone tucks their hair behind their ear, the way their laugh sounds when it catches them off guard, the way their eyes wander toward the stars when they think no one's watching. And in those moments, those soft, passing fragments, Ferb stores 1,000 quiet feelings. He doesn't rush to name them. He doesn't need to label what he feels. He simply lets it grow, slowly, organically. Like building a machine, not from blueprints, but from instinct. He doesn't always know what he's constructing at first, only that it matters, that it's worth building, that the outcome will be something beautiful, even if no one else ever sees it. And when he's with someone like Vanessa, that care becomes visible. She's never a puzzle to solve, never a project to improve. She's a person to honor. With her sharp wit and protective sarcasm, she's used to people trying to figure her out, to fit her into a box. But Ferb never tries. He simply lets her be. And somehow in that space she opens up slowly, like a flower realizing the sun was always shining. They don't rush into labels. Their friendship, if it can even be called that, evolves like Ferb's inventions, carefully constructed, thoughtfully tuned, full of unexpected joy. There's no pressure, no declarations, just presence, a shared silence while watching the sky, a passing smirk when something goes exactly as planned, a quiet thank you in the way one of them lingers just a little longer than necessary. It's in these spaces that Ferb's romantic nature blooms, not through showmanship, but through depth, a kind of emotional architecture that's invisible to most, but unmistakable to those who feel it. His heart doesn't race. It builds, carefully, lovingly, with the same care he gives to a machine that has to fly, spin, or sing, with attention to detail, with patience, with the quiet faith that even the smallest parts have meaning. And in that, Ferb's love is timeless. The kind of love that isn't about dazzling someone, but about knowing them, seeing them, being the one who remembers the small things and never stops offering the little ones. A safety helmet designed to match her favorite color, a lunch packed with a snack she once mentioned in passing, a device that plays her favorite band's music, tuned just loud enough to enjoy but soft enough not to disturb. No one asks him to do these things. He just does them. Because that's Ferb. He doesn't love loudly. He loves accurately. And one day, perhaps not today, perhaps not for a long time, someone like Vanessa will understand the full depth of that. She'll look back at all the moments, all the gifts, all the quiet shows of care, and it will hit her all at once. He was there. He was always there. Not waiting, not hoping, just giving. And that, perhaps, is Ferb's most romantic truth of all. That he doesn't need to be noticed to feel full. He doesn't need to be chosen to feel worthy. Because his love is not a transaction. It's not a story of if I give, then I'll receive. It's just love, freely offered, fully present, quietly placed in the world like a gift wrapped in care and sealed with understanding. And when the stars rise over Danville and the inventions rest for the night, when the tools are put away and the day has grown still, Ferb sometimes lingers just a moment longer. He stands there under the stars, eyes high, maybe thinking of her, maybe thinking of the next idea, or maybe just standing in peace, knowing that in all the quiet ways that matter, he gave the day his heart. And that for Ferb is more than enough. Ferb Fletcher doesn't just build machines, he builds possibilities. Where others see the boundaries of their world, Ferb sees doors, invisible ones, quiet ones. Portals not to escape reality, but to expand it. And perhaps that's the most beautiful part of who he is, his belief that the world, this world, is not the limit. That around every corner, across every star, beneath every idea, there is more waiting to be discovered. It's not just science that drives Ferb's imagination. It's wonder. A kind of soft curiosity that lives in the quietest part of his mind. He doesn't want to conquer other dimensions. He wants to understand them, to feel the difference in gravity beneath his feet, to hear what the wind sounds like through alien trees, to meet versions of his friends, of himself, that see the world just a little differently. That's the dream. And when he and Phineas first begin to experiment with dimension-hopping technology, it's not for adventure or even invention. It's for exploration, for perspective, to glimpse the vastness beyond the backyard. And even though the travel is wild, the energy beams, the portals, the interdimensional gear, it's all filtered through Ferb's quiet eyes. His gaze isn't wide with fear or even awe. It's calm, focused, like a traveler arriving at a familiar place in a new light. Because in many ways, Ferb was always meant to see beyond. He's a builder, yes, a creator, but also a dreamer, a gentle philosopher who understands that sometimes, to truly know yourself, you have to see who you are in other worlds. And in those other worlds, we find reflections. What would Ferb be like if he were raised in a dystopian city? What if he lived underwater? What if he never built anything at all? Each question is a doorway, and Ferb steps through, not to change the story, but to listen to it, to learn from it, to quietly absorb what it has to teach him. And through it all, one truth remains constant. No matter what dimension he travels to, Ferb remains himself, calm, caring, capable, even when the world turns upside down. Even when he meets a robotic version of himself, even when he stumbles into a timeline where inventions are banned and curiosity is a crime. Ferb adapts, but he never abandons who he is. And that kind of constancy is rare. It means that his core, the part of him that builds, that dreams, that loves in quiet ways, stretches across realities, across timelines, across dreams. It doesn't need to be loud to be strong. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. Sometimes, when he steps through a portal and into a strange new place, Ferb pauses. Just a moment. Just enough time to feel the difference in the air, to notice the colors, to listen. That moment is Ferb's way of saying, I'm here now. I'm ready to understand. And then he moves forward. Not with fanfare, not with fear, but with gentle determination, with open eyes and a steady hand. And often it's that presence, the way he carries himself, that brings calm to even the most chaotic dimension. Because when you meet Ferb, you feel it instantly. This is someone who builds peace, even in the strangest corners of the multiverse, even when everything is unfamiliar. Even when he's faced with versions of himself that are cold, or wild, or unsure. Ferb doesn't judge them. He just learns from them. And in doing so, grows a little more. Not in size, not in fame, but in depth. There's something poetic about the way Ferb moves through new dimensions. He doesn't rush. He doesn't panic. He doesn't even marvel in an obvious way. Instead, he steps lightly, thoughtfully, as though the ground beneath his feet might be sacred, as though every new place deserves his full attention. And so, while others might dash off in excitement, Ferb often lingers, observing, absorbing, understanding. He pays attention to the little things. The way sunlight refracts through different atmospheres, the hum of distant machines powered by unknown energy, the curious architecture of civilizations untouched by Earth's blueprints. He takes it all in, not to mimic it or dissect it, but simply to appreciate it. To Ferb, every dimension is its own form of art. And while Phineas might rush toward the action, Ferb is the one who spots the fine threads holding it all together. The subtle clues in design, the gentle shifts in culture, the quiet humanity that exists even in the most alien worlds. He finds beauty in what others might overlook. He builds his understanding the same way he builds his inventions, piece by piece with care. Sometimes in his travels, Ferb meets versions of himself. Some are surprisingly similar. Some are wildly different. A Ferb who's all metal and code, driven by logic but still carrying a quiet kindness in his voice modulator. A Ferb who lives underwater, communicating through lights and movement rather than sound. A Ferb who never had a brother and whose eyes hold the weight of solitude, but who still builds things alone but not lost. These meetings don't disturb Ferb. They ground him. Because in every version, something remains, a core, a thread, a truth that holds across time and space. They all care. They all listen. They all build. It may look different in each world, but the intention is always there. And that's what Ferb learns most from traveling across dimensions. Not how different things are, but how connected they are. He starts to notice patterns, not just in the science, but in the hearts of people. Across every dimension there are friendships. There is laughter. There are inventions. There are versions of Candace, still trying to make sense of the chaos. Versions of Isabella who still lead with heart. Versions of Doofenshmirtz who are lost and just want to matter. It reminds Ferb that the threads of life, the feelings, the questions, the dreams, are woven through everywhere. And when he returns home from a journey like this, he doesn't talk much about what he saw. He doesn't tell long stories or boast about the wild worlds he's walked through. He just returns to his workbench, to his family, to his friends. But his eyes, they're different, a little wiser, a little softer, because the more worlds he visits, the more he understands that his own world, this quiet, chaotic, wonderful slice of summer, is just as magical, maybe more so. Because it's his dimension, his home, his version of Phineas and Candace and Vanessa, his pet platypus, his skies, his music, his place. And yet knowing what else is out there doesn't make him restless. It makes him grateful. He's seen other versions of himself, other possible lives, and still he chooses this one. Because for all its unpredictability, for all the noise and invention and comedy, this version of life holds something no other place has. His real connections, his real growth, and the people he loves exactly as they are. Somewhere in a far-off reality, Ferb once stood beneath a sky of violet clouds. The grass beneath his feet was silver. The trees swayed with an unfamiliar rhythm, and floating in the sky above were rings of crystal, orbiting slowly like time itself had decided to slow down. It wasn't Earth, not by any stretch, but Ferb didn't feel out of place, because for him, wonder isn't rooted in location. It's in presence. He stood still, breathed in the alien air, and simply watched. That's what makes Ferb so different from the typical traveler. He doesn't move from place to place to say he's been there. He doesn't check boxes. He doesn't take selfies or collect souvenirs. He collects moments, the kind that linger quietly in the background of the mind, the kind you think about hours or years later, when the world is fast again and you need a pause. Ferb carries those moments with him. And perhaps that's why every new world seems to welcome him in return. There's a kind of mutual respect between Ferb and the unknown. He doesn't demand that a new dimension make sense. He simply observes, listens, adapts, and in doing so he finds understanding where others might only find confusion. There was a dimension once where everyone's thoughts were shared out loud. No secrets, no silence, every passing idea voiced automatically. It should have been overwhelming, But Ferb adjusted. He didn't panic. He simply learned to move through that world like a gentle note in a loud song, present, but not invasive. And in doing so, he helped to bring calm to others too. Even in worlds filled with noise, Ferb remains a kind of quiet anchor. In another reality, Ferb visited a place where dreams became reality. The second someone imagined something, it appeared floating, glowing, real. It was chaotic, unpredictable, beautiful. And yet, Ferb didn't build anything there. He just watched what others created, what they dreamed into existence. And from the background, he understood something deeply moving. People's dreams are not just ideas, they're reflections of what they miss, of what they long for, of what they fear. He didn't interfere with them, he simply learned from them. That's Ferb's gift, across dimensions and dreams alike. He's not a collector of trophies. He's not a conqueror of space. He's a witness. He's a traveler who asks, "What can this place teach me?" And whether it's a planet of endless rain or a floating city made entirely of sound, Ferb always finds a way to blend in without losing himself. Even in his dreams, that quiet presence continues. Because when Ferb sleeps, he doesn't dream of chaos or explosions or wild adventure. He dreams of balance, of machines that hum softly under starlight, of blueprints drawn in moonbeams, of helping hands, kind eyes, and soft laughter in the distance. In his dreams, he might return to a dimension he once visited. But it won't be the action-packed version. It will be quiet, reflective, a place where the sky glows a little dimmer, where the buildings breathe gently with light, where he walks, not to change anything, but to remember. And when he wakes up, there's always a new idea on his mind. Not necessarily something huge or groundbreaking. Sometimes it's just a new hinge, a better way to fold wings on a glider, a quieter gear. But it always comes from something he felt, from something he saw in a world no one else may ever visit. That's what dreams are for Ferb, not escapes, but inspiration. Not a break from reality, but a mirror to it. And whether he's drifting through sleep or stepping through an actual portal, the same gentle principle follows him. Be present. Be kind. Be curious. Build when you can. Learn when you can't. And always, always come home changed. Every time Ferb steps through a portal, he leaves a piece of himself behind. Not in the sense of something lost, but in something shared. A blueprint sketched onto an alien chalkboard. A half-finished glider left in the hands of someone who'd never dreamed of flying. A repaired device. A gentler way of thinking. His impact is quiet, like a fingerprint on glass, but it remains. Somewhere across the dimensions are traces of Ferb Fletcher's touch, his care, his silence that speaks louder than sound. But for all the awe of interdimensional travel, Ferb never loses sight of what matters most. It's not just the technology. It's not the discoveries. It's not even the knowledge he gains, though all of it matters. What he values most, what grounds him, even when the worlds get strange, is the sense of connection he finds in every place he visits. He's seen alien cities, floating libraries, underwater civilizations, even a world where time itself moves backward. But in each place, someone offered kindness. A local lent him a hand. A stranger shared a meal. A robot blinked at him with something like curiosity. No matter how distant the realm, there is always some spark of familiarity, of life, recognizing life. And Ferb never forgets it. When he returns home to Danville, the backyard looks a little smaller, but never less magical. The sky is familiar. The trees are just trees again. But there's a quiet smile on Ferb's face, because he carries entire worlds inside him now. and yet he never brags, never boasts. He could tell stories, wild ones. He could explain how the gravity works on the glass islands of Andelion 7. He could describe the way dreams fold into reality in the sleeping city of Maya. But he doesn't. Not because he's hiding anything, but because he knows that true wonder can't always be described. It has to be felt. And he'd rather let others feel it in their own time, in their own way. So instead he channels what he's learned into his work. A dimension with color-based communication inspires a new kind of lighting system in the treehouse. A floating world without sound gives him the idea for a vibration-based music machine. Even when he's not explaining, he's always expressing. Ferb speaks most fluently through invention, through design, through quiet purpose. And there are moments, rare ones, when he shares more. Maybe a few words, maybe just a phrase. Like when Isabella once asked him, "Did it feel different over there?" Ferb looked at her, thoughtful, and finally said, "It felt wide." And that was all. But in those few words was everything. The openness, the scale, the awe. He doesn't need paragraphs, just a breath of insight. Just enough to remind others that there's more out there, and that it's worth reaching for. In Dreams, Ferb continues his travels. The dimensions may fade, the adventures may end, but the wonder remains, and in the soft space between sleep and waking, Ferb often finds himself not running or flying, but walking, slowly, through unknown landscapes, not seeking answers, just being. Because more than anything, that's what Ferb teaches us. You don't need to be loud to explore boldly. You don't need to speak constantly to be deeply understood. You don't need to know everything to feel the vastness of it all. And you don't need to go far to find beauty. Sometimes all it takes is opening your eyes, listening, imagining, trusting that even in the strangest corners of the universe, your quiet heart still belongs. So whether Ferb is floating among stars, sketching in the dirt of an unknown world, or quietly fixing a broken toaster back in his own kitchen, he carries the same spirit, a spirit that sees the extraordinary in the everyday, that builds bridges across space and time, not to escape life, but to feel it more fully, that finds peace in possibility, and always, always come home. There's something quietly eternal about the way Ferb greets each summer morning. No alarms, no rushed breakfasts, no loud declarations, just stillness, calm. As sunlight spills gently through his bedroom blinds, Ferb is already awake, not groggily, but peacefully, like his dreams simply let go of him when they were done. He rises slowly, brushes his hair with precision, and steps into a day filled with potential. No fuss, no hurry. And when he steps outside into the backyard, that familiar, ever-changing canvas, he doesn't look overwhelmed by possibility. He looks grounded. To most people, summer is chaos. Kids running wild, days blurring into one another, sticky popsicles melting down fingers, and too many plans that never quite get finished. But for Ferb, summer is a rhythm, a quiet pulse beneath all the energy, and he feels it more deeply than anyone else. Today, like so many others, begins with a pencil and a plan. Ferb settles at the wooden workbench tucked into the back corner of the yard. It's worn smooth by years of use, with soft grooves etched into its surface, reminders of all the inventions and ideas that have passed through his steady hands. The early morning air is crisp, carrying the scent of cut grass and distant toast. Birds chirp somewhere in the trees and everything else is still. Ferb rests a pencil under his chin, eyes scanning the open blueprint in front of him. It's not just schematics. To anyone else, it might look like a mess of lines and notations. But to Ferb, It's the beginning of a memory waiting to be made. The machine itself is only part of it. The real invention is the experience. The laughter that'll fill the air when it comes to life. The awe in Phineas's voice when he sees it complete. The questions Baljat will ask. The moment Isabella leans in just a little closer. The sound of Buford pretending he's not impressed. These are the real reasons Ferb builds. And he knows that this summer, is made up of these moments. Not just towering inventions and wild projects, but the quiet seconds in between. The stillness of a morning before the others arrive. The satisfaction of making something with care. The joy of watching people he loves have the time of their lives. He doesn't need applause. He doesn't need credit. He just needs the peace of knowing he's part of something beautiful. It's not long before Phineas bounds into the yard, energy already humming around him like static. His voice is bright and full of ideas, his arms already sweeping wide as he describes what they're going to do today. Something about a giant kinetic wave park that also plays music. Ferb smiles faintly. Not because he's surprised, but because he already knew. He's been sketching it since the sunrise. They don't speak much, but they don't need to. That's the beauty of their bond. Where Phineas dreams in color and chaos, Ferb dreams in symmetry and sound. Together they create balance. Their summer isn't loud because they force it to be. It's loud because it wants to be, because their joy spills over. But beneath that joyful noise, Ferb stays still, focused, calm, present. As the others arrive, Isabella with her hopeful smile, Baljit carrying a calculator and anxiety, Buford acting tough but tagging along anyway, Ferb quietly adjusts the blueprints. He hands Phineas a part without being asked. He reroutes a wire. He tightens a bolt. Always helping, always building, always watching. Because Ferb doesn't just build with tools. He builds with attention. He notices what others miss. A loose wheel, a nervous glance, a hesitation in someone's voice. He fixes things before they fall apart, sometimes before anyone else realizes something might go wrong. That's why the summer always works. Not because nothing breaks, but because Ferb is there. As the sun rises higher and the backyard fills with laughter and motion, Ferb remains at the center, not as the loudest or the flashiest, but as the anchor, the steady hand behind every wild idea, the quiet confidence that says, "We've got this." And through it all, his pencil rests on the workbench, beside half-finished sketches and a mug of lukewarm tea. Another invention is coming to life. Another memory is being made. And in Ferb's mind, it's already becoming part of something far bigger. A summer that doesn't have to end. Not really. Because when something is felt deeply enough, when it's shared and savored and built with love, it lives on. Afternoons in Danville tend to blur together, hot, golden, and full of motion. The sound of hammering, whirring machines, wheels spinning on impossible tracks, and Perry disappearing in the blink of an eye. It's everything a kid dreams summer could be. But for Ferb, these afternoons aren't about chasing adrenaline. They're about presence. Even when things get hectic, when Isabella's leading the fireside girls in synchronized construction, when Buford tries to hijack a cannon for fun testing, when Doofenshmirtz's latest innator rumbles in the far distance, Ferb never loses composure. He simply adjusts, improvises. He doesn't shout instructions or command attention. He kneels down, tweaks a valve, reconnects a line, and the invention stabilizes. No one even notices the crisis was there in the first place. That's how it always is with Ferb. He's not the eye of the storm. He's the steady hand, guiding everyone through it. To him, Building isn't about solving problems with noise. It's about harmony. And he finds it even in the most chaotic moments. Take today, for example. The music-powered wave park is nearly finished. A gleaming, undulating playground of water and sound, with curved rails, shimmering ramps, and a translucent dome that resonates with every splash. It's beautiful, ridiculous, totally Phineas, and completely real. Ferb watches from beneath a shady umbrella, wrench in hand, listening to the laughter echoing through the structure. He notices how each musical note shifts the water's shape, how Candace, sneaking up to bust them, pauses for a moment to marvel at the glowing floor beneath her feet. Even she can't resist the wonder. Ferb doesn't interrupt, he doesn't point it out. He just lets it be. Because for Ferb, part of the magic of summer is letting people discover it for themselves. There's a kind of wisdom in that. He knows everyone's on their own journey. His job isn't to direct them. It's to build the space for them to grow, to laugh, to be surprised. And when they do, that's the reward. Later that day, when the sun starts dipping behind the trees, the whole crew gathers around the finished structure. Everyone's tired, soaked, happy. Phineas is talking about tomorrow's idea already. Something about making the moon a disco ball. But Ferb is quiet. He's watching Isabella as she ties her hair back, watching Buford offer Baljeet a towel in his usual I'm-not-being-nice way, watching Candace glance at the invention again before walking back toward the house, a little slower than before. And then, for a moment, Ferb looks up at the sky. The clouds are peach and lavender now, lazily drifting. The air feels heavy with the warmth of a day well spent. Somewhere nearby, a sprinkler ticks rhythmically. A neighbor's wind chime plays a tune only Ferb seems to notice. It's a quiet moment that could be missed if one blinked too long, but Ferb never blinks too long. He's always here, soaking it in. Every breeze, every sound, every flicker of joy. And he stores it. Files it away in his heart like a memory pressed between pages. Because he knows summer won't last forever, but the feeling can. It can stretch on long past the season, long past the days of inventions and impossible dreams. If you build it right, if you live it fully, then even ordinary moments can become timeless. Ferb believes that. He doesn't need to say it. He just builds it. Every moment of every day. The sun dips lower now, stretching shadows across the backyard like long, sleepy fingers. For most kids, this is the moment the day starts to slow. But for Ferb, it's one of his favorite hours. Everything gets softer. The light, the voices, even the wind. Phineas and the others are still buzzing, cleaning up pieces of the project, joking about who made the biggest splash. But Ferb has slipped away for a moment, not far, just to the side. He's sitting beneath the old oak tree, hands folded in his lap, legs outstretched, eyes cast up at the sky as it shifts from gold to lavender. He doesn't need anything from the moment. He's not planning, not sketching, he's just feeling, breathing. This, too, is part of the summer he's building. A summer of stillness. A summer where joy doesn't always need motion. Sometimes it only needs attention. From under the tree, he watches small things that others might miss. The trail of an ant over a fallen screw. The way the last rays of light catch on the metal curves of their invention. A squirrel on the fence post, silhouetted like a character from one of Perry's side adventures. It's all connected. The loud days, the quiet ones, the invention and the rest. The way the laughter echoes just right when the wind blows in the trees. Ferb doesn't believe in background noise, he believes in layers. And today's layer is peace. Eventually Isabella finds him. She doesn't say anything at first, just sits down beside him with a soft, "Hey." Ferb nods gently. She leans back, mirroring his posture, looking up at the sky with him. No sparks, no drama, just a shared silence that says more than any words could. After a moment, she says quietly, "I hope this summer never ends." Ferb turns his head slightly. Their eyes meet. He doesn't reply with a poetic line or a romantic flourish. That's not his way. Instead, he says in the calmest, most certain voice, "It doesn't have to." And somehow, that's enough. Because Ferb doesn't just see summer as a season, he sees it as a way of living, a rhythm, a presence. You carry it with you even when the weather changes, even when life speeds up again. It's in how you notice the little things, in how you stay connected, in how you create moments that mean something. And in that moment, Isabella understands. They sit together until the others call out to them, Phineas asking about dinner, Buford pretending he doesn't care, Baljeet reminding everyone it's scientifically unhealthy to skip a meal. Ferb rises slowly, brushes off his pants, and offers Isabella a hand up. They walk back together, the light now even softer, the breeze cooler, and Ferb's heart feels full, not in a bursting, overwhelming way, but in a settled way, a quiet completeness. The backyard is mostly tidied up now, but their invention still glows faintly in the evening light. Perry is curled up on a lawn chair. Candace is nowhere in sight. Maybe, just maybe, she's not trying to bust them tonight. Maybe she too felt something in this day worth preserving. Ferb steps back into the group, not needing to say anything. His presence is enough. He picks up a basket of tools, passes someone a towel, tightens a final screw without being asked. And as laughter rises again, softer now, more relaxed, Ferb feels the shape of the moment forming in his mind like a completed blueprint. No lines, no math, just feeling. Summer doesn't have to end. Not when you live it like this. Not when you build it with care. The stars begin to emerge slowly, like shy thoughts creeping in after a long, beautiful day. The air is cooler now, crisp in that perfect way that invites blankets and slower breathing. The invention is off, the tools are packed away. The laughter has faded into soft murmurs. Ferb lingers. He always does. While the others head inside one by one, Phineas chatting excitedly about tomorrow, Baljeet recounting statistics no one asked for, Buford pretending he's being forced to stay for dinner. Ferb stays in the yard, sitting quietly on the hammock strung between the tree and the fence. He watches as Perry, in his pet form, curls up at the foot of a nearby lawn chair. He listens to the way the wind moves through the leaves like whispers from a world that doesn't rush. He closes his eyes for just a moment, letting the sounds and scents of the day sink in. This is what he lives for. Not just the inventions, not even the laughter, but the after, the space where the memory breathes. Ferb opens his eyes and looks at the stars, not at constellations or distant galaxies, but at the way they feel against the dark sky, like soft punctuation on the sentence that was this day. Tomorrow will be another idea, another blueprint, another shared experience, but it won't be a repeat. That's the secret, he thinks. Summer never feels like it repeats because it's never about the thing they build. It's about how they build it together. And so each day, no matter how similar it may look on the outside, becomes something entirely new on the inside. Ferb knows that even if summer ends on a calendar, it doesn't have to end in the heart. Because what they've created, this rhythm, this togetherness, this gentle cycle of joy and wonder, can follow them forever. He'll carry it with him, in every sketch he draws, In every moment, he listens instead of interrupts. In every time, he quietly helps without needing thanks. That's Ferb's magic. He doesn't talk about how things should be. He makes them so. Quietly, steadily, lovingly. And when people think back on these summer days, whether in 5 years or 50, they won't remember every detail of the machines or the dimensions or even the names of all the projects. But they will remember the feeling, the calm, the certainty, the kindness, the peace. And in that feeling, Ferb lives on, a quiet guardian of a season built not with time but with intention. He rises from the hammock as the last lights flicker on inside the house. Perry gives a little yawn, hops down, and follows. Ferb glances back at the yard once, the treehouse glowing faintly, the grass gently swaying, the stars still watching. And he smiles. Not a big smile, just enough. Because this day, like all the others, was enough. And tomorrow will be too. Because summer isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose to carry with you. And Ferb always carries it well. And now, as Ferb returns home beneath a starlit sky, we too can slow down. Let your thoughts drift gently, like the breeze that follows behind him. Let the quiet hum of invention settle into the background of your own evening. Maybe tomorrow brings something new. Or maybe it doesn't. But either way, may you hold this feeling close. The stillness, the wonder, the soft idea that maybe, just maybe, summer can last forever. Good night. And thank you for spending it with Ferb.